He didn't look at my face first. He looked at my shoes, scuffed cheap already peeling at the sole. Then he glanced at my name tag like it was a joke someone else had played on him. And in that exact moment before a single word was spoken, I knew how the night was going to end. I just didn't know yet that he was the one who'd be walking out empty-handed. That's how these stories usually start, right? With a look. The kind of look that tells you someone has already decided who you are, how much you're worth, and how disposable you must be. To him, I wasn't a person. I was background noise. A uniform. Something you snap your fingers at. And honestly, I'd gotten pretty good at swallowing that feeling. You learn to, when rent's due and your family needs you. The restaurant was called Maison Rivière. One of those places downtown where the lighting is low, the menus are heavy, and everyone pretends not to check prices. It smelled like butter-expensive wine and the kind of confidence money gives people who've never been told no. Friday night, full house. Crystal glasses, clinking conversations layered over each other like static. Deals being made, affairs being hinted at. People spending more on dinner than I spent on groceries in a month. For me, it mostly smelled like fatigue. I'd been on my feet since noon. My black slacks were a size too big, held together with a safety pin I prayed no one would notice. My back ached, my arches burned, and I still had 4 hours to go. To the guests, I was just the server. But inside, I was counting tips, calculating bills, thinking about the phone call I'd had with my mom that morning about medical expenses we still hadn't figured out how to cover. Then the host whispered VIP Table 7. And that's when he walked in. Elliot Grayson. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew his type instantly. Mid-40s tailored suit that screamed custom posture wide like he owned the air around him. His face was handsome in a cold magazine way, but cruel when it moved. The kind of man who scans a room not to admire it, but to see who's watching him. Behind him was a woman in a sleek ivory dress, beautiful tense already apologizing with her eyes. I took a breath, straightened my apron, and walked over. Good evening. Welcome to Maison Rivière. My name's Lena. I'll be taking care of you tonight. He didn't respond. He inspected the silverware, turned a fork in the light like he was searching for flaws. Sparkling water, he said not to me but to the table. And bring the reserve wine list, not the simplified one. I nodded. Of course. As I turned to leave, he stopped me. And make sure the glass is actually clean this time, he said loud enough for the tables nearby to hear. Standards have really slipped lately. He laughed, then leaned toward his date. You have to stay on top of them, otherwise they get lazy. I felt the heat crawl up my neck, but I kept my face neutral. I'd learned that skill a long time ago. Back when I realized that reacting only gave people like him what they wanted. Things escalated slowly at first. He sent back a perfectly good appetizer. Claimed the wine was off when it wasn't. Made a show of sniffing, swirling, frowning like a parody of a connoisseur. It wasn't about the food. It never is. It was about control. About making sure everyone at that table, especially the woman beside him, knew who held the power. Then came the moment he'd clearly been waiting for. He flipped open the menu, smirked, and looked straight at me. Do you even speak French? I answered carefully. I'm familiar with the menu, sir. He chuckled. The menu? Right. He turned to his date. Watch this. Then he looked back at me and switched languages. Not casual French, not conversational. Something old, tangled deliberately, overcomplicated. Fast, condescending, designed to trip me up. He finished and leaned back, arms crossed, smiling like he'd just won something. Waiting for me to freeze. To apologize. To call a manager. The room felt quieter. Not silent, just attentive. And in that space, something inside me clicked. I thought about the years I'd spent studying language. About the nights I'd slept on library floors. About the professors who taught me that words aren't just sounds, they're weapons. Shields. Mirrors. I thought about how tired I was of shrinking. So I looked him in the eye. Didn't reach for my notepad. Didn't ask him to repeat himself. And when I spoke fluently, calmly, in a refined dialect he clearly didn't expect. I corrected his grammar. Softly critiqued his phrasing. Explained the wine he'd insulted in a tone usually reserved for underperforming students. Suggested politely that a simpler option might suit him better. You could feel it land. His smile faltered. His face drained of color. He understood enough to know he'd been exposed. The woman beside him let out a short, involuntary laugh before clapping a hand over her mouth. I switched back to English, smiled, and said, "I'll place your order," then walked away before my knees could give out. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 10 minutes later, he was standing, voice raised, accusing me of stealing his credit card, threatening police. Phones came out. People whispered. My stomach dropped. Because that kind of accusation doesn't just cost you a job, it stains you, follows you. I walked back out anyway, looked him straight in the eye. "I didn't take your card," I said calmly. He stepped closer. "Empty your pockets or I call the cops." And that's when another voice cut through the room. Calm, older, unimpressed. A man from a corner table stood up. Worn jacket, quiet authority. "Check your inside pocket," he said. "Left side." Elliot scoffed, but the room was watching now. He reached in, and there it was. The shift was instant. Accusation collapsed into embarrassment. The woman beside him stood up, finally seeing him clearly, and said, "No, I'm done." She walked out without looking back. The older man introduced himself. Turns out he owned the bank underwriting most of Elliot's ventures. Real power. The kind that doesn't need to shout. Elliot left without a word. Later, the man sat down with me. Asked about my background. Listened. Really listened. Then offered me a job that changed everything. 6 months later, I wasn't carrying trays. I was carrying my life forward again. And the lesson stuck with me. So here's my question for you. Was I wrong for speaking up? Should I have stayed quiet, kept my head down? Or is there a moment when dignity matters more than consequences? Tell me what you think. I want to hear it.